Good morning. It's good to be with family this morning. It's good to be worshiping in air conditioning this morning. That's a church camp joke. Thank you for those. It's so good to be here. If you're a guest this morning, welcome. We're really glad that you're here with us this morning, that you chose to worship with us. We have a meal afterwards. You don't have to bring anything. You don't have to have anything. Just come. We'd love for you to join us just to eat and fellowship, to get to know you better, for you to get to know us better. And if there's any way we can help you, if you're seeking, if you're searching, if you have questions, if you're looking for a church home, we'd love to help you on that journey. So just welcome, and we hope that you're encouraged this morning. Parker kind of jogged up here and said, I still got it. I do not. I will not be jogging for the foreseeable future. Camp was awesome. Here's a picture we take at the end of the week of all the campers of 3 or 4 congregations together, and it's just a wonderful week. I know if you hear this, it doesn't sound like a wonderful week, but you know, spending a week where 60% of your day is in 90-degree weather in the hot sunshine, sleeping in a cabin with 8 to 12 potential strangers on what you can only put kindly a firm mattress, I guess that's a nice way of putting it, living in the woods amongst copperheads and king snakes and possums. We saw all of that this week. Taking around 15,000 steps a day or sometimes more. That might not sound like a great week to you, but I promise when you ask the people at camp, it's the most wonderful week of the year. It is awesome. You get to learn more about, you know, the young people in your congregation. Like for one, Colin Casey is like the LeBron James of church camp. He can catch anything, do anything. Abigail Johnson wins every competition. Just stop trying. Orion is hilarious to hang out with during the slip and slide time and write him letters. Gus eats where is Gus at? Gus eats pancakes and breakfast food like nobody's business. Eva can sing Hamilton songs like no one's business. It's awesome being at church camp. But what's maybe more important and what's better than all that is watching young people grow in Christ, watching them learn about Jesus, watching them worship, watching them give their life to Jesus. It's a wonderful week. So all you campers, we love you so very much. To every single person in here who worked on staff, thank you so much. You were such a shining light to the people around you this week, and I think it had an eternal difference for every single person who helped in some way. I figured this morning what we would do is, you know, sometimes we teach our young people and we work with our young people, and we go to these camps, and you might think, well, I wonder what they do out there, or what they talk about, or what they learn. And I thought, you know, I think it's beneficial for every parent and for every person in this congregation to know what are the kind of things we're talking about with our young people. And so what I thought I'd try to do in a very short amount of time is to boil down what we talked about this week into one kind of short, compact lesson. Our theme this past week was called Rivals. And it was based out of Exodus 20, which was read to us earlier, those first 3 verses, where God speaks to his people. And he says that I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. And he says this line, you shall have no other gods before me. And what we talked about this week was that in life there are opposing forces vying for your soul and vying for my soul. That there is a God who wants me, but there are lowercase g gods who want me. That there's a God who is pursuing me or who wants me to pursue him in return, but there's also a devil and a Satan who wants me as well. There are rivals like tug of war pulling at us who want our soul, and that is the reality of life. You know, and the question is not, will we bow down? Because listen, every single person in here and every single person who walks on this earth worships something. Every single one of us bow down to a God. The question is, who will we worship? What will we worship? Who will we bow down to? And that's what we wanted to talk about with our young people, because I think you see this in our own lives, but especially with young people. Isn't everything going at them right now at this stage in their life? It seems like everything is battling for their heart and their mind and their soul. And we recognize that because, truthfully, it's coming after ours too. And we wanted our young people to understand this because we want them to give their heart, to give their soul, to give their mind to the one God who really deserves it, who can do great things with it. And so we talked about rivals this week. And it's kind of interesting talking about idolatry because, you know, idolatry is really foreign to us in some ways, isn't it? I mean, most of our idolatry passages come in the Old Testament. You see them make carved images out of wood, stone, and gold, and you go, why would someone do such a thing? You know, that doesn't seem to really be valuable. Why would you believe in that? And you got to understand their situation. I want you to imagine you live on a deserted island and you've never heard of a phone or any type of technology. And imagine you got shipped to America and dropped in our day and age, and everywhere you look, everyone has a phone. And I want you to imagine you have a rule that says you are not allowed to have a phone. How would you feel? It's like, well, they have one, and it seems so great, and it seems to be useful in their life. And that's probably what it felt like to be a people who have one God, but everyone around them has these idols and images that they worship. They seem to be helpful and useful, but their culture influenced them sometimes towards idolatry instead of worshiping the one true God. And it seems foreign to us, but it really shouldn't. You know, I know that we don't necessarily build these images and idols, but what they did is very similar to what we do. We looked at this week some stories of how they would make idols, and I don't share the whole process with you, but it's really interesting. Somebody would create this image, and then, you know, they would wash it and purify it and get it ready to become. They believed it wasn't that their image or idol was God or was their God, but they believed that the spirit of this God would come and animate the idol. And the person who would make this image would symbolically, after making it, act like they have cut off their wrists to almost say, like, I did not do that. This is not a created thing. This is just a creator almost. And they would take all the tools they used for their idol, and they would bind them up and they'd throw them to the bottom of the river, almost to say that this was not created, we didn't make this is a God. And then over time, you inherit those gods when you're born into families and born into cultures. And you say that seems foreign to us, but listen, they went towards these gods for fulfillment, for meaning, for life itself. Now let me ask you, is there anything in our day and age, in our culture, that maybe people turn to for meaning, for fulfillment, and for life itself that is not their creator? We have idolatry in America too. You know, we have American idols, not Carrie Underwood, bless her heart, and Kelly Clarkson. They're great, don't get me wrong. But we have created things that we also turn to sometimes for ultimate fulfillment and meaning, for help in life itself. And they would use their idols, this is what's really interesting, they use their idols to justify their behavior. Because if you make your God, who gets to determine the law of that God? You do. You ever heard anyone say something like, well, my God wouldn't? Or, well, the God I know. So you see what you're doing there? Well, I kind of make God into my image, and I could say his laws whatever I want it to. And we do the same thing, do we not? And we can use these gods to justify our behavior just like they did. See, American idols look like the idol of money, of greed, of needing more, because only then will I be stable and secure and happy. It looks like the idol of sex. I think about what Paul would say in Colossians chapter 3 and verse 5 when he speaks of sexual things, of immorality and impurity and passion and evil desire and covetousness. And what does he call all of them? Idolatry. These things that you serve and worship and that you turn to. He says, as a Christian, you are to put those things off and put on Christ. It's the idol of sports. The funniest thing this week to me was Sunday night, I kicked off camp with a sermon. We worshiped at 6. At 7 o'clock last Sunday, what happened? The Thunder played in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. I remember joking with people. I was like, if we lose this game, it might ruin my camp week. And it was funny. It was like, man, I really need this week too. Because if we're being honest, are there not some things in our life that maybe we care about a little too much? That maybe we move our schedule around for and we put a lot into that maybe we shouldn't? You know, there's that idol. There's the idol of technology. There's the idol of people, pop stars, politicians, preachers, anybody with an influence. There's the idol of country. You think about the idol of country, where people put their citizenship on earth instead of their citizenship in heaven. There's the God of politics and national security and patriotism, but really all of those gods have one God in common, and it's the God of self. Paul would say in Philippians 3 and verse 19 that, speaking of a people who do not worship the Creator, they would say, their end is destruction, their God is their belly, and they glory in their shame with mindset on earthly things. The idea is, whatever they want, whatever they desire, that's their God. And ultimately, they serve themselves. And so, idolatry, while foreign in many ways, as we read it in the Bible, is really familiar. And there was one passage that stood out to me all week that we barely read, that I just kept coming back to. I want you to look at Psalm 115. I want you to look at that psalm with me real quickly. We're going to speed through this, okay? In Psalm 115, we see a few things about idols. Number one, we see that idols are deceptive. Now, on the screen, I'll start in verse 4, but I'm going to back up in my own Bible to verse 2. It says, "Why should the nations say, 'Where is their God?' Our God is in the heavens, and he does all that he pleases." Verse 4, "Their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths, but do not speak, eyes, but do not see. They have ears, but do not hear. They have noses, but do not smell. They have hands, but do not feel. They have feet, but do not walk, and they do not make a sound in their throat." As he speaks of idols, what we learn about them is in some ways they're deceptive. You know, an idol is an image, and that image looks like maybe it can do something or it is something, but ultimately it is powerless. And while their idols maybe looked like they had ears, nose, mouths, all the things that maybe we have, I guess you could say, while it looked like it had all the things to do something, to have ability, it couldn't do any of that. It cannot do what it appears to. It's deceptive. You know, idols today are the same way. The work of human hands. It seems like they can provide you something or benefit you in some way, but when you worship that idol, what you find is it cannot deliver on any of its promises. You know, our modern day idols, there are things that sometimes we turn to save us, to heal us, to escape from reality, to numb us. We turn to these things to rescue us, and yet they do none of those, do they? They maybe provide something at first. Maybe there's some pleasure or there's some numbing, but what you find is you have to keep getting worse and worse and go further and further into this mess because it cannot do what it seems like it can do. See, idols are deceptive. There's this quote I liked studying this week. It says, "Nothing teaches us about the preciousness of the Creator as much as when we learn the emptiness of everything else." When you bow down to the idols of today, what you will find at the end of the day is you are empty because those idols are deceptive. They seem like they can do something for you, but they can't. And what verse 8 of this psalm says, it's even a kind of a worse picture. It's not only are they deceptive, but something happens when you worship these idols. Look at verse 8. He says, he's going to say, you become like the God you worship. Verse 8 says this, "Those who make them become like them. So do all who trust in them." You become what you worship. You become like what you worship. You become the God that you create and serve in a way. When you worship God, our Father, our Creator, the ultimate God of everything, you will become more like Him. Remember in the beginning it says we're made in the image of God, that you and I have a purpose and an ability to reflect Him. That's what it means. That's our purpose in life. That we can, as we live for Him and follow His law, that we can reflect Him more and more and show that image. Well, when we serve an idol or the false gods of our world and our day, what happens is we distort the image that we were made in, but we look more like the idol of the day. See, it's interesting. In some ways, as a Christian, when you're living like Jesus, you are in some ways like an idol or an image. One of the words for idol in Hebrew is the same word for image in the beginning. It's like when you're a Christian and you're living for Jesus, in a way you're like an idol, showing people what God is like. But when you follow false gods and when you bow down to idols and serve them, you distort the image you were made in, and then you look a lot like that very thing. And I want you to think about what that means. You know, when you serve self, you know what you're going to look like? You're going to look selfish. And when you serve money, you're going to look greedy. And when you get the idea. I won't go all the examples. That could get a little interesting. You get the idea. What you serve, you look like. And when he says that they have hands but can't feel, and noses and can't smell, and mouths but can't speak, you get this idea that these things are ultimately dead things. They're dead gods. And what happens is when you serve a dead God, you end up becoming a dead thing. But when you serve the living God, you find real life. And that's what he's getting to. You become what you worship. You become like what you worship. And so we shouldn't be surprised when we're not reflecting the image of our Creator when we're too busy serving the idols of our day. And what the point the psalmist, I think, is trying to get at for them is this: idols cannot deliver. They can't. Look at verse 9. It's not going to be on the screen. Just if you want to follow along, verse 9 to verse 15 with me. It says this. After saying you become like them, it says, O Israel, trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. O house of Aaron, trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. You who fear the Lord, trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. The Lord has remembered us. He will bless us. He will bless the house of Israel. He will bless the house of Aaron. He will bless those who fear the Lord, both the small and the great. May the Lord give you increase, you and your children. May you be blessed by the Lord who made heaven and earth. What he's getting there is the Lord will bless you. The Lord is who you trust. The Lord is your help. The Lord is your shield. Idols cannot deliver, but there is a God who can, and it's your Creator. And he's trying to get them to understand it's fruitless to serve these things in life, that there's only one God worth serving. And he's not man-made. He's your Creator. I told this to the kids last Sunday night, and I think all of us need to be reminded of this. You know, idols, they need you, they want you, but they do not love you. They don't have your best interest. They don't really want your best. But God, your Father, He doesn't need you, but He wants you, and He does love you. You want to talk about some of the differences between the idols of the day or the idols you can worship in God? Well, there's many. Created things versus Creator. But one of the biggest differences is this. Idols cannot give you the love that God can. The love of God is what false gods cannot give. And if you turn to these things, you will never find that kind of love. You will never find rescue. You will never find salvation. You will never find the help that you're so desperately looking for. You'll never really find escape from the sin and the troubles of this world. What you'll find is you go down this winding pit to worse and worse despair. Because there's only one God worthy of your worship. There's only one God who loves you, and He has come in the flesh. He's lived, He's died, He's resurrected for you. He's become like us and been made human because He wants to save and rescue you. And we're going to walk on an earth that has problems and troubles, but ultimately our salvation is secure in Jesus, and that's the God we're serving. And there's nothing else that you should serve. Now I say that, but let's be honest. It can be a little difficult not to want to bow down to some of these idols. I mean, we recognize mentally that they're not a God worth serving, but they pull, don't they? They have such a hard pull. I mean, none of us would sin if sin can't offer us some type of happiness at first, right? None of us would struggle with this if it offered us nothing, but yet they seem like they can. They seem like they can. It seems like, man, you ever look at people who serve things in this life and you go, they look happy. They look like they're having fun. It looks like their life is great. That's deceptive. It may be for a little bit, but ultimately it's not. And there's one God who can truly, eternally fill you with joy and give you a purpose that really lasts for the rest of your life, who can give you a help that lasts for the rest of your life. And so we asked some questions to our kids this week, and I want to close. I just want you to think about this question. Are there any idols taking residence in your heart, mind, and soul? We reference this verse often, but you remember what Jesus said the greatest command was? To love the Lord your God with what? All your mind and... Is there anything in your life that you're bowing down to? If you want to know if you're bowing down to it, what we mean by that is there anything I'm turning to save me? To help me, to rescue me? Is there anything I'm finding ultimate meaning and fulfillment in my life that is not Jesus Himself? You know, is there anything I change my whole schedule for, that I dump all my resources to, that is not God Himself? Those are the things that are becoming idols in our heart. And I think the truth is, for all of us, there are little things all around our heart and mind every day that are pulling us in that direction. And we have to make the choice to pull the rope the other way and say, I'm going to serve no other gods but my God Himself. If there's any idols in your life and in my life, what our job is the job that He gave to Israel so very often. Tear them down. Like, go take an axe and start chopping. You know how Christians did that is they developed rules for their life. They said, I want to be connected to God. I want to serve him only. I'm going to make rules for my life. You know, I'm going to start every day by praying. I'm going to be in my Bible every single day. I'm going to make sure I spend time with my church community every week. I'm going to spend time in silence with God. They made rules for their life to stay connected to the one God they should serve. And some of those rules means I got to maybe take some things out. I spend too much time on my phone. I watch the news too much. I don't need to go by that place or that thing. I need some better friends, because sometimes those are the things that pull us into idolatry. But I want you to ask that question this morning and think about that during your day. Is there anything in my life taking residence in my heart and mind and soul that maybe I'm bowing down to? And if there is, get to chopping. Get to swinging. And start taking them out. It's a lifelong battle, but there is only one God worthy of our worship. There is only one God who can deliver us. And this morning, if you need to be delivered, if you need to be rescued, I'll tell you right now, you won't find it on your phone. You won't find it in the world. You won't find it in culture. You won't find it in any of the things that seem to help people. You'll only find it in Jesus the Christ. And if we can help you find that rescue, or if we can help you take down some idols, or we can encourage you in any way, if you have a need, you can come now while we stand and while we sing.